Hey loves, welcome all, welcome back to my channel. Today guys, I'll be checking out this interesting video from Candace Owens, and it's titled TikTok ban. The CIA wants their narrative back, and I'm excited for this. And without much ado, let's see what Candace Owens has for us in this video.
All right guys, happy Thursday, and I bring you some great news. The patriarchy is over. I mean, I don't really believe in the patriarchy, but in case you do, it is officially over. It is done. How do I know? Well, because a nearly 30-year-old man who believes that he's a little girl has declared it to be so. Yep, that must be true. By the way, every single person that I distrust the most wants TikTok banned right now. Yeah, let's talk about that. Because when the military-industrial complex says, we don't want this, I suddenly say, no, we definitely need it. So today, I'm about to become a TikTok stan. All that and more today coming up on Candace Owens. All right, you guys already know that I do not have TikTok for a lot of reasons, but I do often go viral on TikTok. And recently I was going viral because I sat down with George Janko and we were talking about 9/11. I always go back to that moment in my childhood and how brainwashed I think all of us were by the mainstream media, because there was really, back in those days, I know I sound so old, just one narrative. We were all huddled around the big screen TVs, remember those giant big screen TVs, and we were terrified, rightfully so. A horrific terrorist attack took place on our soil. And then we just didn't question anything that the military-industrial complex did. We just wanted to feel safe. And in the process, we gave up a lot of our freedoms. And I was talking about how I feel terrible for the way that I felt towards all Muslims, Muslim Americans as well. And that was because of the consistent brainwashing that was happening, and me obviously being so young and so afraid, just accepting this narrative that all Muslims are bad. So it doesn't matter what happened to them in the Middle East. And so thank God that we no longer live in those times. Thank God for independent media. Thank God really for the collapse, I would say, of mainstream media, because now you can hear different narratives and you can accept whether or not you believe a Candace Owens versus a CNN, but at least you're able to hear, again, different perspectives. Well, let's jump into this TikTok ban, because this is getting really interesting. I didn't expect it to be so interesting, but it is fascinating. So in case you missed it, the House on Wednesday passed legislation that would ban TikTok if its China-based owner, called ByteDance, doesn't sell its stake in the popular social media platform within 6 months of the bill's enactment. Basically, legislation gives ByteDance two options. You have to sell TikTok, or TikTok will be banned. I want to be clear, this discussion about whether or not TikTok should be banned has been really going on since TikTok arrived and became the new social media app for Gen Z, their favored social media app. TikTok is obviously a fairly new app. It arrived on the scene in 2016, and then by 2018, it became the most downloaded app in the United States. So again, like I said, this was embraced first and foremost by Gen Z. Eventually, one day, Gen Z is going to be in charge of America. So what does that look like? Now, as I said, I've been against TikTok for different reasons. I say keep your kids off of TikTok because I just have watched the proliferation of transgenderism, awful things that are happening, people that I've sat down with who felt like they were raised on TikTok and made some decisions because there are doctors that tell them to take hormones, whatever it is. You just need to be paying attention to where your kids are learning anything. And I think kids are too young to be on social media, full stop. Yeah. But I've never advocated for TikTok to be banned. And what I will say today is that I am going to be staunchly against TikTok being banned, because all of the usual military-industrial complex suspects want it to get banned. That's just my gut instinct. When I look up and I see someone like Dan Crenshaw saying, let's get this passed, someone that I don't trust and who I know serves the interests of the military-industrial complex, and yet I see somebody like Thomas Massie, who I very much trust, making arguments against this ban, very sound arguments against the ban, I know which way to lean. Again, it starts with my gut. Let's listen to what Thomas Massie had to say in his rebuttal in the House. Take a listen.
Well, I would just close by saying that, we're sitting here with phones made in China, we're wearing suits made in China, we drove cars here with chips that are made in China, And they're our foreign adversary, and by golly, we're going to do something about it. What are we going to do? We're going to tell Americans they can't put a piece of software on their computer. They can't go to certain websites that the president designates. So I urge my colleagues to oppose this well-intentioned bill because it will have bad consequences, and I yield back the balance of my time.
So now when he says a well-intentioned bill, he's obviously...
Wow, you guys, what are your thoughts on this particular topic of TikTok about to be banned in 6 months' time? One thing is that if TikTok is being banned, the world, especially the Gen Z, will be reset to their factory setting because most people live their life based off of what they see or what they consume on TikTok. Because one thing about TikTok is that it's very, very addictive, it's very, very intoxicating, and you can tell from the way the Gen Zs are going about this thing that they are headed for destruction because of the amount of content they consume from TikTok. Let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think it will be fair if TikTok is being banned? Let me know in the comment section down below, and let's continue watching, you guys.
Speaking to what people are saying it's about. They're saying, we just don't want Chinese people to have our data. But yeah, that's a very valid point. They can get your data in tons of different ways. We're holding Chinese technology in our hands. We're driving in Chinese-made cars. You're hooking up your cell phone to a Chinese-made car that has Chinese chips in it. So what actually is this about? Because clearly this push can't just be about a concern that Chinese people taking our data begins with TikTok. Simply doesn't. It simply doesn't. Well, here's what I will say, and please don't be angry at me to pointing to the facts here. A lot of things changed, I would say. We'll look back in history and realize that sentiments in America changed following the horrific attacks that happened on October 7th of last year in Israel. And what I mean by that is obviously this happened on foreign soil, but this became a very big narrative in America. And basically a bunch of people were saying, you need to pick a side. Like, you need to pick a side right now. People were being called names. And what ended up happening in the process is that people that traditionally were not interested in Israeli foreign politics started getting interested and started researching to learn more about Israel. I by the way, include myself in that class of people, in that group of people. I was like, I don't really know anything about Israel. And now suddenly I feel like I just figured a gun in my head and I have to, say what I'm okay with. Let me at least get educated. Well, in the process of Generation Z getting educated, they began circulating Osama bin Laden's letter to America. It went absolutely viral on TikTok. Here's a headline from the New York Times from last year, around that time, published November 16th. It says, videos about bin Laden's criticism of the U.S. surge in popularity on TikTok. The subheading is, the videos discuss a letter from the former al-Qaeda leader wrote in 2012, in which he defended the September 11th attacks and said Americans had become servants to Jews. Now, why was this a very critical moment? Well, as this article unpacks, you suddenly had a bunch of Gen Zers saying that they woke up, that suddenly they are realizing that America has been engaged in a lot of evil. They give this example of one TikTok user who was at her kitchen sink with the caption, quote, trying to go back to life as normal after reading Osama bin Laden's letter to America and realizing everything we learned about the Middle East, 9/11, and terrorism was a lie. Wow. This article also notes that the hashtag letter to America showed videos with 14.2 million views. So again, overnight, a different narrative was born. And many people were extremely upset about this. It definitely led to a debate. And I will tell you where I stand in the debate. I'm a person that believes that no matter how evil an individual is, we should study the people. I read speeches from former dictators, horrific people. I mean, I'm talking about someone like Vladimir Lenin, Stalin, the things that were done. I will still read their speeches because I think it is important to read those speeches to at least understand how and why people have come to accept evil. But I'll tell you one thing, the mainstream media was not on board with that. And I will tell you another thing, definitively the military-industrial complex was not on board with that, because now you potentially have a generation of kids coming up that are not going to be so okay with the idea of bombing 1 million Iraqi civilians. as we did, right? Said we were looking for weapons of mass destruction. And in the process of looking for weapons of mass destruction that never existed, we bombed 1 million Iraqi civilians. Which is a nonsense. That should absolutely be considered a war crime. Well, again, going back to that letter, however, Meghan McCain tweeted this at that time: "I'm so scared of Gen Z because apparently their brains are so poisoned, they think it's cool to share quotes from Osama bin Laden's manifesto on TikTok like that's normal or rational. Like, how do we even fix that?" Well, I'll tell you that last question, like, how do we even fix that, is pretty relevant to where we ended up today, which is that people want TikTok banned. Right after Meghan McCain tweeted that, by the way, TikTok removed the hashtag Letter to America the very next day. But again, now TikTok was in the focus, and I believe in the focus of the military-industrial complex. Like, again, whether you believe that what Osama bin Laden wrote had any merit or not, what you have to accept is that it radically transforms the opinions of an entire generation. So I'm going to show you this clip. This is Morning Joe in December of last year, following this letter going viral, and really what spawned a new debate. Take a listen.
We need to talk about TikTok. TikTok, if you will, it is the 24/7 news channel of so many of our young people, and it's like Al Jazeera on steroids, amplifying and intensifying the anti-Semitism and the anti-Zion with no repercussions. I've got to ask, Joe, like, there's been a lot of lamentations about the fact that TikTok's ownership is Chinese, but you know what? Oracle owns 10% of the company. General Atlantic owns a piece of the company. Our friends at Sequoia Capital own a piece of the company. So does Sequoia and General Atlantic, does Oracle want to be responsible for spreading anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism? It's time to talk about TikTok.
And time it was indeed. By the way, that is Jonathan Greenblatt.
You guys, what are your thoughts on this video? Do you think it's because of the Chinese gathering data from the Americans that they want to ban TikTok? Because actually, it's not only the Americans that are using TikTok. Everybody from all over the world are using this app called TikTok. What do you guys think is the main reason why TikTok needs to be banned? I really want to know your thoughts on this topic, and let's continue watching, you guys.
As well, want to be clear on my perspective of him. He's a monster. The ADL is monstrous, and they do nothing but take away American rights and take away American freedoms under the guise of fighting anti-Semitism, right? If anything they call anti-Semitic can suddenly be attacked, and a lot of times they're lying about whether or not these things are anti-Semitic. But parking aside my feelings of Jonathan Greenblatt, yes, suddenly banning TikTok became a crucial emergency because what they saw was a bunch of young individuals, essentially people that are going to be the future leaders of America, who were not pro-Israel. Gen Z at least was not convinced to support any more wars in the Middle East. So even if they're on the fence, they definitely were having a wider discussion than, well, at least ADL and Jonathan Greenblatt were comfortable with. I wouldn't say all of these people on TikTok were anti-Semitic. I think that's a little bit ridiculous, but you get the sentiment. It was not pro-war. So let's fast forward to this being published yesterday in the Times of Israel. It reads, the Jewish Federations and the Anti-Defamation League have accused TikTok of allowing anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiment to run rampant. Within that article, it reads, quote, the single most important issue to our Jewish communities today is a dramatic rise in anti-Semitism. That was a quote from the Jewish Federation, which they gave to Congress. It goes on, our community understands that social media is a major driver of the drive in anti-Semitism and that TikTok is the worst offender by far. Okay, so that is their perspective. Let me give you the deal. This is what's going to happen. Don't fault me for telling you the truth. If TikTok is in fact banned, there is no question that Israel will be blamed. AIPAC will be blamed. The ADL will be blamed. Jews are going to be blamed for a social media app being removed. You can see that sentiment building. They're reading these articles. They're already making videos. And Gen Z is saying that the only reason this is on the table is because they don't like our perspectives about the Israel versus Hamas war. That is what they are saying. So what tends to happen is that if you prove them to be right, If they believe that this gets banned and they are seeing that Jewish organizations are behind or at least supporting the ban, they're not the only people that believe that it should be banned, just to be clear, there will be no coming back. This will be seen as a punishment that is being issued to Gen Z for the sin of what they deem to be them becoming more educated. So if your goal is to fight anti-Semitism by banning TikTok, my prediction is that what it's actually going to do is inspire more anti-Semitism, and the Gen Zers are going to get crafty in the manners that they communicate. I don't think this is a good idea if the purpose is that you want to fight anti-Semitism. Don't believe me? Here is one TikToker who is going viral.
Wow, you guys, Candace Owens is so right. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and let's wrap this video up, you guys.
Explaining what's actually happening in terms of the TikTok ban. Take a listen.
So they're pushing another TikTok ban bill really hard, but something does not add up about it at all.
Bro, I've been trying to wrap my head around this for the last couple days and nothing was making sense until I stumbled upon this leaked recording. First off, what I'm about to get into is highly controversial. It's extremely sensitive, so I'm gonna have to be really careful about it. So this leaked recording is from about 4 or 5 months ago. It's Jonathan Greenblatt. He is the head of the Anti-Defamation League. Clear as day, we have a generational problem, we have a TikTok problem, and we're gonna need to put all our energy into this. And if there's any lobby that owns more US politicians, it is this one. I can't really say it out loud, but this is the one. Democrats and Republicans alike fear this lobby's clout. We can count on well over half the House, 250 to 300 members, to do reflexively whatever they want. In 24 hours, we could have the signatures of 70 senators on this napkin, literally playing out right before our very eyes. There's also this Time magazine article that just came out. Why TikTok needs to be sold or banned before the 2024 election. The article barely even mentions China or election security. Almost the entirety of it focuses solely on this issue right here. Another chart from the article. And the ironic thing is that, yes, it's true. A foreign government has infiltrated the US, except it's just not the country they want you to think it is.
All right, so there you have it. That is the current narrative on TikTok. And by the way, that is one of 3 reasons that I am against the TikTok ban. Because number one, it will in fact lead to more anti-Semitism. Because when you have someone who is not liked, by the way, by Democrats and Republicans, a lot of people have issues with Jonathan Greenblatt and the ADL. When you have someone like Jonathan Greenblatt outwardly saying that, outwardly caught on audio sounding like a cartoon villain, that's not going to be good. Whether it's right or wrong, what you're going to have is a scenario where Israel and quote unquote powerful Jews are going to be blamed if TikTok is banned. Please heed my warning on this. Like I said, that narrative is already building. Number 2, the reason I'm against it is because I don't trust our government narratives, okay? That's just how I feel. People have a right to hear different perspectives and to decide on what they believe to be true or false. We don't need the government telling us what the right narrative is. Banning TikTok, what does it actually mean? Well, it means that we'll be giving Facebook more power, Instagram more power, and I think we all know and understand that Facebook is and always has been a CIA tool. And by the way, that's what I think it is. I think this comes down to the CIA. I think it's the never-ending wars CIA, the Pentagon, that wants to ban TikTok, not the Jews. I think the deep state panicked when that letter went viral. I think they said, oh my gosh, we just realized that TikTok could potentially impact our pre-approved war narratives. If they were able to get that letter of Osama bin Laden around, think what else they're going to be able to get around. We don't control TikTok like we control Facebook and Instagram. By the way, I think that's a good thing. Deep state narratives being weakened is a good thing. Tucker Carlson going to Russia, that was a good thing. Does it mean that everything Vladimir Putin said was the truth? Absolutely not. But it made it very clear that virtually everything that we were being told, in which we felt deep down in our souls also was not true, was, yeah, a lot of lies as well. Hearing both sides and then determining what is true or what is false is the right of every citizen. And number three, despite the fact that I very much dislike it for a lot of reasons, is because I think that we would be living in a different and perhaps a better America today if we had social media and we had citizen journalists back when 9/11 happened. That's the truth. I really do. I look around and I say, what do we have to show for it? All of these non-stop wars since 9/11. What do we have to show for it? America is trillions of dollars in debt. America is definitively a less safe country today than it was before 9/11. Despite the pitch, oh, we got to do this for your safety. No, this country's not safe. This country's not secure. Our border is wide open. So, yeah, we were no doubt freer and we were no doubt safer before the military-industrial complex began controlling every aspect of our lives. At the end of the day, you guys know where I stand. More speech, not less. Leave TikTok alone. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Wow, you guys, that was such an interesting one from Candace Owens. What are your thoughts on the possibility of TikTok being banned? Do you think is the right approach or is totally wrong? Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. And what do you think is the main reason why TikTok is about to be banned? Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye, guys.